Okay, welcome to part B, or the second part of this sort of online tutorial around the STEP model. So the STEP model was introduced originally by the Centre for Distance Management, so quite a well-researched model. It provides structure for performance and developmental conversations. So conversations where you're wanting some change to happen and you're bringing a bit of direction to that. Can sit alongside and integrate a coaching approach. And we'll see how that works in a bit more detail in a minute. And it can be really powerful when coaching within a relationship where you've got some accountability and there's some possible hierarchy. So if you looked at the video around the creatures, we're talking about, we're thinking about conversations about performance and behavior. And you, as the person who's going to be the team leader or the line manager, the person who is going to almost like start this conversation, you might be thinking this is going to be a bit challenging. Yeah, so there's a bit of challenge. Look at that first video around the creatures and think, what's your habitual approach, and then work out what approach you want to take. Now, with this STEP model, there are 4 different bits to it. First is about statement. So you're introducing a statement that describes what you're observing or experiencing. And we'll go into a bit more detail about each of these in a minute. Second step is stage is about testing. So you test the validity of your original statement through dialogue. Is it true for both participants? And then you are going to do a bit of exploration. When the statement has been tested, you take a coaching role to find ways forward. So here's the statement about what I'm observing. Does that make sense to you? Is that what you're experiencing? And then how do we move forward from that current reality, if you like? And then the proceed is actually you're agreeing and inviting actions and timescales for implementation of what you found within the explore stage. So let's go in a little bit more detail on how this might fit with maybe a coaching model. So like the GROW, for example. So in the coaching, you introduce a topic or a goal, or if we're using Oscar, an outcome. And the statement is that bit. This is saying, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about something that I've observed as your line manager or your team leader or your peer. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. That's the topic. That's the goal. And the goal is to bring some change in that. And we'll go into a little bit more detail in that minute. The testing bit is you're testing out. I've said this, made this statement about what we need to talk about and what needs to change. Actually, is that true though? Is that your reality? It's my reality. Is it yours? So let's check that out. So the testing bit fits with that reality and situation part. So it's almost like that's the first bit of your coaching. You're setting the scene. You're saying, this is what we're going to talk about. What's happening currently around that thing that we're going to talk about. That bit of performance, that behavior. And then you go into the exploring bit, which is much more easy, I suppose, to use for this coaching approach. It's about your options. What options have we got to change that behavior, performance? What choices and consequences are there that we could explore? And then the proceed is very much the will, the what next, or the action part of the coaching. So let's go into a little bit more. The statement. So this statement is often a gap in performance or behavior. That's what the statement is saying. It's exploring, or it's explaining this gap. So this is what I or the organization are expecting. So this is this line here. Yeah. So here we have this yellow line that says, this is what I or the organization are expecting. And then this black line here is saying, this is what I'm observing or experiencing. So this is what the yellow line representing, this is what I or the organization or expectation. That might be about behavior. That might be about a work scheme. It might be about approach to behavior in the classroom. It could be an approach to marking. Any of those things that you would cover in CPD. So here's what we've said we're going to do. Here's what the organization or I as your team leader, your head of department or head of year are expecting. The black line is, this is what I'm seeing, and there's a gap. So the statement should give people a clear idea of what is the gap. Now, crucial to this is the notion of what we might call truth telling. Because sometimes we can fudge that statement. So we have these three choices. And one is that I choose to tell you what I'm aware of. So I choose to tell you what I'm observing and experiencing when I come and see you in the classroom, for example. So, and I'm being honest with myself about what I'm seeing, and I'm saying, that's not quite what we agreed we were going to do, and I feel a bit uncomfortable with that. I'm honest that I'm seeing that, and I'm going to be truthful with you. I'm going to tell you that's what I'm experiencing. I'm going to tell you, here's the gap. This is what we agreed, and this is what I'm seeing. Now, the second one, it might be that I chose to tell you something contrary to my awareness. Yeah, so I might be lying or putting a bit of spin on it. So I walk into the classroom, I observe something, and part of my brain's going, actually, that's not what we agreed. And then the other part of me is going, but it's all right. But I don't want to talk about that, really. I'm just going to, that's a bit uncomfortable. So I distort my own experience. I say, actually, it's not as bad. It's all right. It's nearly there. It'll be all right. I'm sure if I came another day, it'd be fine. So then what we do is, that's what we do. We pass on that to the person who we're observing or we've seen in the classroom. We might say, actually, it's okay. What you do, it's all right. It's all right. It's not quite what we said, but it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's, I'm sure it'll get there. Yeah. So we don't tell the full truth. And then the third one is we withhold. So, and that might be that I deny my own experiences. I walk in and I don't even acknowledge that I'm uncomfortable with what I've seen or it's not what we agreed. Yeah. And I don't tell anything to the person. I just don't say anything. I just withhold. So I don't put a spin on it. Say, oh no, it's okay. I just don't say anything about it. So I don't give anybody any feedback. You ever experienced that when you just don't get any feedback and you're thinking, oh, what is going on? So I think it's really important to think about when we're making that statement, which one am I doing? Am I putting a bit of spin on things? Am I withholding things? Or am I being truthful to myself and to the person I'm talking to? And the second part of this is it's useful to hone that statement, to try it out. So I encourage people to do two things. One is they could try it out on someone else. So actually, I've got to have this challenging conversation with someone in my team and my department. And can I try it out on you first? And I'm going to ask you some questions. So I'm going to ask you, is it really clear what the gap is in between performance and what I'm seeing? Is it really clear? And would you feel open to have a conversation about that if I presented it in this way? So you can get some feedback. Another way of doing it is to write your statement, write it down a few times, edit it over a couple of days if you can. Think about it. Are you being truthful? Are you withholding? Are you being really clear on what the gap of performance is? Am I saying it in a way that's not attacking? It is about, this is what I'm observing, and it feels like it leads to a conversation. So hone it, try it out. And then we make our statement, and the second bit of this step model is we're talking about the testing. And what we're doing, we're checking out that our facts are right. So this is what I've observed, this is what I've experienced, but I just want to hear it from your point of view. Are there some facts that I don't know? Is there some data that I don't have? How are you feeling about this? What's going on for you? Is what happened to you before you came into the classroom that meant that you behaved or performed in that particular way and that particular day? So we're not looking for excuses, but we're just trying to make sure that we have a full understanding of the situation. So I've made this statement, and what I'm doing is I'm checking out the facts and the emotions around that statement to see whether I've got the full picture. And then what we do is we discover whether that statement holds up or not, or whether I need to adjust a little bit, whether that other person needs to adjust a little bit. So we're trying to get some shared understanding of that statement. And then we go to the future. And when we get into the future bit, we're starting to look at really getting into this coaching mode again around exploration of possibilities. So here is the performance that we expect, the behavior we expect. Here's what I'm experiencing. Here's the gap. How might you jump that gap? How might you get to what we agreed, or what the expectation is? So what are all the different things that you could try? So again, you're in full coaching mode now. You're asking questions. You're not steering it. And then after that, you're saying, well, what is it that you will do? So this is the proceed bit, the P bit. What will you do next? Out of all those different options, those different choices, that different exploration, what is it that you could do next? And when will you do it? So that's a bit of a summary of the STEP model. I would encourage you to go and try it. Hone your statement. Make sure your statement is really clear. What is the gap that you are seeing? Check that you got all the facts together, that you understand the emotion that is around that performance and behavior. And then using your coaching techniques, you can go into this exploration to find ways forward and some agreement of when those actions will happen. There are a couple of other resources. There's a Robust Conversations workbook that we put on the website that goes into this a bit more detail. And there's a creatures tutorial that I've already talked about, which is the part 1. And then there is a case study from Manager as Coach book. So again, there are 3 different resources that you could use on top of these seminars.